Hello everyone! Today our journey won't be through sunny lands, but across the North Atlantic. On a freezing night in 1912, the stage for one of history's most striking episodes, the sinking of the Titanic. Behind the lights of the most luxurious ship of its era, the glittering ballrooms, and the human pride that believed it had conquered nature, there was a brutal reality. Because aboard that vessel, the true enemy wasn't the iceberg, it was the icy water, time, and even the very minds of those trying to survive. So, before you get comfortable, hit the like button on the video and subscribe to the channel, the best place on YouTube to journey through stories that blend fascination and fear in equal measure, and take a moment to comment where you're watching from and at what time. It's always incredible to see this living map of people following along together. Now, turn off the lights, close your eyes for an instant, and imagine the biting cold of the Atlantic invading your bones. Let's embark together on this journey to discover why, on that April night, almost no one truly had a chance to survive. April 10th, 1912, dawns clear in Southampton. You breathe in the sea air deeply, a mixture of salt, coal smoke, and excitement. Around you, hundreds of people move like organized ants, all with the same destination, the majestic ship anchored in the harbor. Your eyes can't take in the entirety of that floating masterpiece. How to describe something so vast? Imagine 3 football fields lined up or 23-story houses stacked. It's the Titanic, the largest moving object ever built by man until that moment. In the boarding queue, you notice social differences like visible layers. In front of you, a lady with a hat so ornate it looks like she's carrying a small garden on her head. Behind, a young immigrant couple holds all their possessions in 2 worn suitcases. The ticket in your hand is your passport to history. Depending on what's written there, first, second, or third class, your experience will be completely different. How can a single ship contain such distinct worlds? You are about to find out. Entering first class is like stepping into a floating palace. The scent of polished wood, new leather, and expensive perfumes creates an immediate atmosphere of luxury. The carpet beneath your feet is so soft, it feels like it wants to swallow your shoes with every step. In second class, the comfort is still remarkable, comparable to the best hotels in London, just without the exhibitionist opulence of first class. It's like entering the house of a successful cousin. Everything is of quality, but without unnecessary exaggerations. As for the Titanic's third class, contrary to what many believe, it isn't an uncomfortable hold. By the standards of the time, it's surprisingly decent. Of course, there are no Persian tapestries or bohemian crystal, but there is cleanliness, organization, and even a certain simple elegance. Your cabin, regardless of class, is your home for the next few days. In first class, it's an apartment worthy of nobility, with a private bathroom, an extremely rare luxury in 1912. In second, a comfortable room shared with a few others. In third, a more cramped space, but still better than many ships of the era. The ship's decor follows the Edwardian style, with Art Nouveau influences. Think of Downton Abbey settings, but moving and on the ocean. Every detail was designed to impress, from the carved handrails to the stained glass windows that paint the floor with patches of light. The Titanic isn't just a means of transport, it's a statement. As if England wanted to tell the world, look what we are capable of building. The Industrial Revolution had reached its floating zenith, a monument to human ingenuity and an unwavering confidence in progress. Now that you're settled in, it's time to explore. The corridors seem endless, like a labyrinth of luxury. You pass polished mahogany doors, oak staircases, and windows that frame the blue horizon as if they were moving paintings. The ship has just set sail, and the sensation is strange. The floor moves, but so smoothly that if you closed your eyes, you could easily forget you're on the ocean. It's as if the entire ship is whispering, "Don't worry, I'm in control here." The routine on board begins early. At 7 in the morning, musicians are already playing soft melodies to accompany the waking of first-class passengers. It's like waking up inside a music box, with Viennese waltzes floating through the air like gentle ghosts. Breakfast is served with military pomp and Swiss precision. In first class, you have more than 30 options. From eggs prepared 10 different ways to exotic fruits most Britons had only seen in book illustrations. In second class, the menu is less extensive but equally satisfying. Think of a modern 5-star hotel brunch. That's the quality offered to the middle-class passengers of those times. In third class, breakfast is simple, but nutritious and abundant. Oatmeal, fresh bread, cheeses, and strong teas. Many immigrants comment that they've never eaten so well in their entire lives. For them, the Titanic is already America even before arriving there. Table etiquette is a complex science. You discreetly observe how many pieces of cutlery are beside your plate, possibly more than you've used in the last year combined. Each fork, knife, and spoon has a specific function, like instruments of an orchestra awaiting the conductor. The waiters move like silent dancers, appearing when needed and disappearing when not, trained to anticipate desires even before you formulate them. It's almost supernatural how they appear beside you at the exact moment your glass needs refilling. Conversations at the table are navigated as carefully as the ship itself through the ocean. Politics and religion are avoided like verbal icebergs. Instead, people talk about the weather, always, the wonders of the ship, constantly, and expectations for New York, with enthusiasm. After breakfast, first-class passengers usually take their promenade on deck. Women with delicate parasols to protect their skin from the sea breeze. Men with elegant hats and unnecessary walking sticks. It's a fashion show on the Atlantic. Businessmen gather in the smoking room, a masculine sanctuary of leather and mahogany. The air is thick with Cuban cigar smoke and conversations about the New York Stock Exchange. How many fortunes are made and lost in these conversations, with just words exhaled between puffs? High society women meet in the tea room. This is the ship's true center of social power. Here, reputations are built or destroyed between polite smiles and seemingly innocent comments about so-and-so's interesting hat. For children in first and second class, there's a colorful and cheerful playroom, porcelain dolls, lead soldiers, board games, and even a small rocking horse. It's as if Santa Claus had emptied his sack of gifts there. Third-class children don't have a dedicated room, but make the open deck their playground. They run, invent games, and transform corners of the ship into imaginary worlds. In some ways, they have more freedom than their wealthy contemporaries, constantly watched by governesses. Lunch on board is another gastronomic spectacle. In first class, 6 to 11 courses are served, in a sequence so elaborate it resembles a theatrical play. Each appetizer a new act, each dessert a grand finale. The Titanic's chefs are true artists. The head chef, a temperamental Frenchman, commands a team of 60 cooks. For him, every meal is a battle, every dish a victory. Napoleon in a chef's hat, conquering palates instead of countries. The first-class menu is printed daily on gold-decorated cards. You could keep one as a souvenir, but it would be like stealing a small work of art. The dishes have complicated French names that some passengers pretend to know how to pronounce. In second class, meals are less elaborate but would still impress any modern restaurant. 4 courses, all perfectly executed. It's like watching a condensed version of the culinary opera taking place on the upper deck. Third class has a fixed menu, but it's nutritious and flavorful. What it lacks in variety, it makes up for in quantity. Many Irish, Italian, and Scandinavian immigrants comment that they've never seen so much food available at once. Some keep bread in their pockets, a habit hard to abandon. The afternoon on the Titanic offers various activities. You can swim in the heated saltwater pool, an unbelievable luxury for the era. Imagine, while sailing through the icy ocean, you swim in warm waters, like a fish in a first-class aquarium. If you prefer something less energetic, you can visit the ship's library. The silence there is almost religious, interrupted only by the occasional turning of pages and the soft creak of the ship's wood. The smell of leather-bound books mixes with the sea aroma that penetrates through the windows. For the more athletic, there's a gymnasium equipped with the latest exercise machines. Stationary bikes, rowing machines, and even an electric camel. Yes, you read that correctly. It's a device that simulates the motion of riding a camel, considered excellent for posture. If you're in first class, you can enjoy the Turkish baths and massage room. The eucalyptus-scented steam not only cleanses the body but seems to carry away earthly worries. For a few moments, you are not a passenger, but a human cloud. Third-class passengers find entertainment in simpler, but no less joyful ways. Someone brings a violin or a harmonica, another starts singing, and suddenly, an impromptu party forms on the lower deck. Music speaks all the ship's languages. As the afternoon progresses, the tea ritual begins. For the Britons on board, this is a sacrosanct moment. The clock could be wrong, the ship could change course, but at 5 o'clock, the teacups must be served. It's the unwritten law of the empire. Women dress for tea as if it were a formal occasion, and in fact it is. Gloves are obligatory, as are hats. Men briefly abandon their business to accompany them. For an hour, time slows to the speed of a spoon stirring sugar. The sandwiches served at tea are tiny, the size of postage stamps. You could eat 10 without feeling you'd eaten anything substantial. It's not about feeding the body, but about keeping civilization intact, even in the middle of the wild ocean. Fresh scones come with clotted cream and strawberry jam. There's a correct technique for preparing them. Cream first, then jam, or is it the other way around? Heated debates on this vital question have ruined friendships among English passengers. While savoring their teas and sweets, passengers watch the ocean through the window. The North Atlantic in April is a deep blue, almost black at times. The waves aren't large. The sea is surprisingly calm, like a lake, experienced sailors comment. Sunset on the ocean is a spectacle that no London theatre could reproduce. The sun dips below the horizon like a gold coin into a dark blue vault. For a few minutes, the entire western side of the ship seems to be ablaze, bathed in the liquid gold of the setting sun. Preparation for dinner is an elaborate ritual, especially in first class. For women, it involves maids, tight corsets, and crucial decisions about jewelry. It's an almost mythological transformation, from respectable lady to nocturnal goddess. High society men wear impeccable tailcoats and white ties. The dress code is as rigid as the ship's steel structure itself. A button out of place would be noticed and commented on, a stain on reputation as visible as on a lapel. In second class, attire is still formal, but less ostentatious. Men wear well-cut dark suits, women wear their best dresses, saved especially for this trip. It's elegant, but without the theatricality of first class. In third class, many passengers wear their best, often their Sunday clothes, saved for special occasions. Some have never dined in a dining saloon and secretly practice holding cutlery the American way. Dinner in first class is a 3-hour event with up to 13 different courses. It's a gastronomic marathon that requires stamina and strategy. Veterans know to pace themselves during the first courses, saving room for the true delights to come. The menu includes delicacies that sound like science fiction by today's standards. Consommé Olga, wild duck with cherry sauce, asparagus with mousseline sauce, and the pièce de résistance, Waldorf pudding, a frozen sculpture in the shape of a swan floating in a sea of chocolate sauce. The orchestra plays discreetly during dinner, not so loud as to interrupt conversations, nor so soft as to be inaudible. It's the perfect soundtrack for this social theater, punctuating moments without ever dominating the scene. Observing people at the table is entertainment in itself. There sits J.J. Astor, the richest man on board, cutting his meat with the precision of a surgeon. Over there, the nouveau riche from Denver, wearing overly large jewels and laughing too loudly, to the silent displeasure of the European aristocracy. After dinner, paths diverge again. First-class gentlemen retire to the smoking room, where cognac and cigars await them. Women go to the music room, where coffee and sweet liqueurs are served in cups so thin that light passes through them. In second class, there's a concert in the main saloon. The same orchestra that played for first class during dinner now entertains these passengers. The music is perhaps more appreciated here, less a background and more an event in itself. In third class, the fun is spontaneous and vibrant. Someone plays an accordion, couples dance without strict rules, children run among adults late into the night. There's more laughter here than in the entire rest of the ship combined. Everywhere on the ship, small groups form. Compatriots meet and share stories from home. Strangers become friends, united by the common experience of this crossing. The Titanic is a small floating city with its own neighborhoods and communities. When the night advances, the ship transforms. Lights dim, corridors become quieter. You walk the deserted deck and feel the vastness of the ocean around you. You've never felt so small and, paradoxically, so significant, a small part of this grand adventure. The night sky in the middle of the Atlantic is of a clarity that city dwellers rarely experience. Without light pollution, the stars seem close enough to touch. The Milky Way stretches like a river of diamonds spilled over black velvet. From time to time, you see an officer on their rounds. They know the ship as you know your own home, every corridor, every staircase. They walk with the confidence of someone who never gets lost, the true masters of this floating labyrinth. The cold of the Atlantic night is penetrating. The air temperature can be close to freezing, and the breeze intensifies this sensation. Your breath forms small clouds that quickly dissipate. It's a silent reminder of the relentless nature that surrounds this artificial comfort. Returning to your cabin, you notice how the sound of the ocean changes at night. During the day, it's almost inaudible beneath the murmur of conversations and music. Now the soft roar of the waves against the hull is a primitive lullaby, the same that has cradled sailors for millennia. Your cabin, warm and cozy, seems even more comfortable in contrast to the cold night outside. The electric lamps, another marvel of this modern ship, can be turned off with a simple push of a button, without the smell of kerosene from oil lamps. Lying in your bed, you feel the gentle sway of the ship. It's not unpleasant. On the contrary, it has a calming effect, like a giant cradle. The Titanic sails at a constant speed of 22 knots, cutting through the dark waters with unwavering determination. In the morning, the routine begins again. The ship never truly sleeps. There are always sailors on duty, stokers feeding the ravenous boilers, bakers preparing fresh bread for breakfast. It's a living organism that functions 24 hours a day. After a few days on board, you learn the ship's rhythms. You know that at 10:30 the band starts playing on deck, that at 4 p.m. the smell of fresh bread permeates certain corridors, that at 11 p.m. the lights in the main saloon subtly dim, silent signs of time passing. Life at sea has its own time, different from the terrestrial rush. Days blend into one another, marked not by appointments but by meals, sunsets, and evening concerts. Some passengers stop consulting their pocket watches, preferring to live on Titanic time. For many third-class passengers, this is a time of hopeful waiting. They've left everything behind: families, ancestral villages, ancestors' graves, in search of a new life. For them, the Titanic is not just a ship, but a metallic womb, gestating their American futures. Others make the journey in reverse. Wealthy Americans returning from grand tours of Europe, laden with art, antique furniture, and stories destined to impress neighbors in Boston or Philadelphia. For them, the Titanic is a last taste of European sophistication. There are also frequent travelers, cosmopolitans who cross the Atlantic as others cross the street. Recognizable by their familiarity with procedures, by the way they greet the crew by name, by the absence of awe at the ship's luxury. Communication with the outside world happens via wireless telegraph, another marvel of the modern age. The radio operator continuously receives and sends messages, urgent business, personal communiques, even news of births and deaths occurring during the crossing. You can send a telegram for a considerable price. Words are counted and charged individually, creating a new form of concise poetry out of economic necessity. Arriving Tuesday, stop Reserve Hotel, stop with love. Each word precisely chosen. Newspapers are printed daily on board, with news received by telegraph. It's surreal to read about events in London or New York while suspended between continents, as if time and space had been bent by human genius. Fashion on board reflects the trends of 1912. Women wear long dresses with high waists, in the style that would later be called the late Edwardian era. Hats are elaborate works of art, true textile architectures precariously balanced on complex hairstyles. If you're enjoying this immersion, comment below. Would you have the courage to spend even 10 minutes in those freezing waters? I want to see your answer. Men dress with a formality that would seem suffocating by today's standards. Starched collars so rigid they barely allow turning the head, ties tightened like elegant garrots. The masculinity of the era is expressed through restriction and structure, not comfort. Children, surprisingly, dress like miniature adults. Boys in full suits, girls in elaborate dresses with layers of petticoats. Only babies escape this premature formality, wrapped in long christening gowns regardless of gender. Hygiene on board is more advanced than in many homes of the time. In first class, private bathrooms with hot and cold running water are an unimaginable luxury. Some passengers timidly admit they had never used a flush toilet before. Bathing is an elaborate ritual, especially for high society women. Maids prepare the water to the perfect temperature, add scented salts, and stand by with heated towels. It's royal treatment for those who can afford it. In second class, bathrooms are shared but still impressively modern and clean. In third, facilities are more basic and shared by more people, but still superior to the conditions of many working-class homes of the era. The Titanic's technology goes far beyond the visible. Beneath the passengers' feet, an army of men works in the ship's bowels. The giant boilers are continuously fed with coal, an infernal job of heat and soot that keeps the ship's mechanical heart beating. These men, the stokers, work in 4-hour shifts, naked from the waist up due to the extreme heat. Their bodies are maps of burn scars and muscles developed by the constant work of shovels. They are the true human engines behind the machine. The engine room is an industrial cathedral of steel and steam. The enormous steam engines, with pistons larger than an adult man, move with hypnotic precision. The noise is deafening, a mechanical symphony of metal against metal, steam hissing and shouted orders. In a surreal contrast, just a few decks above, violinists in tuxedos play Strauss waltzes, while ladies in silk gloves taste ice creams decorated with edible gold leaf. Two worlds separated by a few meters of steel, but entire universes of experience. Safety is a constant concern, though little discussed. There are evacuation channels, but not enough lifeboats for everyone. A common practice at the time, based on the belief that modern ships merely serve as floating platforms until help arrives. Officers conduct regular drills, more to keep the crew alert than from any real expectation of use. The Titanic, after all, was designed to be unsinkable, with watertight compartments that, theoretically, could isolate it from any damage to the hull. Confidence in technology is almost religious. This is 1912, the height of the Edwardian era, when progress seemed unstoppable and human engineering omnipotent. The Titanic is not just a ship, it is a symbol of this unwavering faith in humanity's ability to conquer nature. You spend hours watching the ocean from the railing. The water is a deep blue that seems almost solid, as if you could walk on it. From time to time, you see dolphins accompanying the ship, leaping joyfully like an aquatic escort for this floating cathedral. At night, the phenomenon of bioluminescence creates a magical spectacle. The ship's wake glows with thousands of tiny organisms that light up when disturbed by the passage of the hull. It's as if the Titanic was sailing on a river of liquid stars. On clear nights, you can see the North Star, the same guide that navigators have followed for millennia. There is something deeply comforting in knowing that, despite all the Titanic's modern technology, it still navigates by the same stars that guided Vikings and Phoenicians. Meals on board become anticipated social events. You start to recognize faces, to anticipate encounters. A temporary community forms, united by the shared experience of this crossing. Friendships that, on land, would take months to develop, blossom in days. For children, the ship is an endless amusement park. Corridors to explore, hiding places to discover. Gentle sailors who show them how to tie knots or tell stories of maritime adventures. It's a childhood condensed into a few magical days. The elderly find comfort in the ordered routine and attentive service. An 80-year-old lady comments that she has never slept as well as in the Titanic's cabins. The gentle rocking of the ship is more effective than any insomnia remedy ever prescribed by London. Doctors on sunny afternoons. The promenade deck transforms into a maritime version of Hyde Park. People of all ages walk in circles, greeting acquaintances, discreetly gossiping, displaying outfits, and forming social alliances that might last beyond the voyage. The weather in the North Atlantic in April is unpredictable. Days of radiant sunshine alternate with dense fog that transforms the ship into a floating island of light amidst a white void. The sound of the foghorn becomes a constant presence, its deep lament reverberating through metal and wood. On stormy days, the Titanic demonstrates its superior stability. While smaller ships would be tossed like toys by the waves, this giant merely tilts slightly, like a gentleman bowing politely to the elements. Night brings its own rhythm. After dinner and scheduled entertainments, the ship does not fully sleep. There is always a light on in some cabin, solitary footsteps on a deck, a group of determined players continuing their poker game until dawn. In the early hours of the morning, you can find interesting figures. The head baker doing his rounds, tasting doughs and supervising the production of the 2,000 fresh loaves needed daily. Or a sleepless millionaire, contemplating the stars and perhaps the weight of his own fortune. As the journey progresses, you develop sea legs, the ability to walk naturally, even with the ship's sway. It's an adaptation your body makes unconsciously, a small personal triumph that experienced travelers note with silent approval. The conversations on board inevitably revolve around the future. For many, this trip is a portal between one life and another. Immigrants discuss their American hopes in a babel of accents. Businessmen plan expansions. Newlyweds dream of homes not yet built. America exerts a gravitational force on the passengers' minds. Even those who are just visiting feel its pull. It's 1912, and the United States is seen as the land of tomorrow, where the rigid rules of old Europe dissolve into limitless possibilities. The most observant notice how Europe's social hierarchies begin to loosen as the ship approaches America. A British banker allows his daughter to converse with a young engineer, something unthinkable in London, but acceptable when the Statue of Liberty is only a few days away. Gala nights are the pinnacle of social life on board. First-class women spend the day preparing, like actresses before an opening night. Dresses of imported silk, diamond tiaras passed down through generations, pearl necklaces that have adorned royal necks. Men in formal wear look almost identical from a distance. Formal penguins in black and white. Only the details reveal the differences. the precise cut of a Savile Row tailor, cufflinks with family crests, pocket watches with stories engraved on their golden covers. The grand staircase is the stage for this social procession. Descending it is a triumphal entry, with all eyes turned upwards. Some passengers admit to having practiced this descent in their cabins, rehearsing the perfect moment to remove gloves or adjust a tie. The orchestra on these nights plays with special enthusiasm. Viennese waltzes, Parisian quadrilles, even the new and scandalous American rhythms for the more daring. Ragtime, considered almost indecent by some of the more conservative passengers, makes feet tap discreetly under tables. The ballroom transforms into a kaleidoscope of colors and movement. Ladies' dresses form swirling flowers of silk and satin. The aroma of expensive perfumes mingles in the air, creating a unique fragrance that could be bottled and sold as Night on the Titanic. Even those who don't dance find entertainment on these nights. Observing is an art in itself. Who dances with whom? For how long? With what degree of enthusiasm? Every detail is mentally noted and discussed later, in polite whispers behind open fans. Young people find opportunities for romance under the watchful, but temporarily distracted, eyes of companions and chaperones. A touch of hands during a waltz, a discreetly passed note, an accidental meeting on the promenade deck under the moonlight. The Titanic is a floating Cupid. In first-class cabins, small private parties take place after the official events. An American millionaire opens bottles of rare champagne. An English lord shares cognac saved since Queen Victoria's coronation. Unlikely friendships form over clinking crystal. In second class, entertainment is less ostentatious, but equally lively. A music teacher offers to play the piano. An amateur soprano reveals a talent that surprises everyone. Sincere applause echoes, without the calculated reserve of first class. In third class, music comes from instruments brought from home. Irish concertinas, Italian violins, Scottish bagpipes. There are no sheet music, just melodies passed down through generations. The dancing is freer, more physical, more joyful. Feet tap the floor to ancestral rhythms. As the night progresses, children are taken to bed, protesting the end of the fun. Their small minds absorb impressions that will last for decades. The gleam of chandeliers, the sound of adult laughter, the sweet taste of forbidden desserts acquired through childish charm. Dawn reveals another Titanic. In the deserted corridors, you can hear the voice of the ship itself, the creaking of wood against metal, the constant murmur of waves against the hull, the distant pulsing of the machines that never rest. Like a mechanical heart, the solitude in these moments has a special quality. You are simultaneously isolated and connected, part of a floating community, but temporarily separated from it. It's a rare moment of reflection in the constant hustle of modern life. Even in 1912, sunrise in the middle of the ocean is a spectacle reserved for a few. Officers on duty, chronic insomniacs, lovers who spent the night talking. The horizon first turns silvery, then golden, finally exploding in colors that no painter could accurately capture. With each day at sea, you notice small changes. The crew's accent gradually incorporates more Americanisms, preparing for arrival. The topic of conversation shifts from memories of Europe to expectations of America. Even the menu includes more New York-style dishes. Meanwhile, deep within the ship, the work never stops. Stokers feed the ravenous furnaces that consume 600 tons of coal a day. Their bodies glow with sweat. Their lungs fill with black dust. They are the true human engines of this floating city. Mail is another continuous operation. The Titanic carries 3,500 sacks of correspondence. 5 clerks work constantly to organize letters and packages. A paper nervous system connecting continents, transmitting news of births, deaths, loves, and business. In the galleys, 60 chefs work in shifts to prepare up to 6,000 meals daily. The kitchens are an organized ballet of knives chopping, pots boiling, orders shouted in culinary French. The heat is intense, the rhythm relentless, the precision absolute. The stewards, more than 400 of them, are the main actors in the Titanic's theater of service. Trained to anticipate needs, memorize preferences, and always maintain a polite smile, no matter how eccentric the request or how rude the passenger. There is one steward for every 3 first-class passengers, a ratio that even royalty rarely enjoys on land. They know your name after the first day, your preferred drink after the second, and can predict your morning mood after the third. The ship's laundry processes mountains of towels, sheets, and napkins daily. Women work in hot, humid conditions with enormous industrial washing machines, steam irons, and endless piles of white linen that must return spotless to maintain the illusion of perfection. Fresh water is precious. even on such a well-equipped ship. It is produced by distillers that convert seawater into potable water, but never in sufficient quantity for waste. Passengers are discreetly encouraged to conserve, especially in third class. Ice, on the other hand, is abundant, an extravagance in 1912. Large blocks are stored in insulated chambers and used for everything from chilling champagne to preserving food and alleviating headaches. On warmer days, the clinking of ice cubes in glasses is a constant music. As the journey progresses, small traditions form on board. A group of gentlemen meets every morning to walk exactly 20 laps on deck, the equivalent of 5 miles. Ladies gather to embroider and exchange patterns from New York and London. Children develop their own rituals. An impromptu treasure hunt every day after lunch. Competitions to spot the first bird or ship on the horizon. Intense friendships form and dissolve with the accelerated speed of life in a confined space. Some passengers keep diaries of the crossing, pages filled with observations about the weather, meals, people met. Small souvenirs are pasted in, menus, concert tickets, even a flower stolen from a saloon arrangement. Documents of an era that would soon end. Religion finds its space even in the middle of the ocean. On Sundays, services are held for different denominations. A Catholic priest, an Anglican minister, and a rabbi, all passengers, offer spiritual comfort. At sea, somehow, God seems simultaneously more distant and more necessary. The captain conducts a non-denominational service in the main saloon. His presence is imposing. Perfectly trimmed white beard, immaculate uniform with gold buttons shining like small suns. His voice, accustomed to being heard above storms, softens as he reads biblical passages. The different social classes rarely mix, separated by physical and social barriers. But there are points of contact. A young millionaire fascinated by machines gets permission to visit the engine room. A first-class governess meets her sister traveling in third class. The contrast between the classes is most evident in the children. An 8-year-old first-class boy wears a full suit, behaves like a miniature adult, and never gets his hands dirty. His third-class contemporary plays barefoot on deck, free and wild like an animal cub. Even so, occasionally, childish curiosity overcomes social barriers. Through cracks in partitions, children from different worlds observe each other, equally fascinated by the exoticism of the other, the formality or the freedom, both equally strange depending on the perspective. Health on board is a constant concern. A fully equipped hospital, with 2 doctors and several nurses, is prepared for any emergency. From common seasickness to premature births, the Titanic is a complete community with all human needs anticipated. Seasickness, feared by many novice passengers, is surprisingly rare on the Titanic. Its exceptional stability means that even in rough seas, movement is minimal. Those with particularly sensitive stomachs can resort to remedies offered by the ship's doctor. Pregnant women on board receive special attention. It is not uncommon for babies to be born during the crossing, especially in third class, where women travel to meet husbands already established in America. A birth on the Titanic is considered good luck, a life beginning in transit, destined for great journeys. As the ship approaches America, excitement grows. Third-class passengers spend more time on deck, waiting for the first glimpse of the promised land. Many will never return to Europe. This is a one-way journey to a completely new life. In first class, trunks are opened to sort clothes appropriate for arrival in New York. Women discuss which dress will make the best impression upon disembarking. Men prepare business documents for meetings that will begin hours after docking. It is tradition to organize a farewell party on the last night. Passengers exchange addresses, make promises to keep in touch, toast to the shared journey. There is a bittersweet feeling in the air. The excitement of arrival mixed with nostalgia for the small world that is about to dissolve. On this last night, you realize how familiar the Titanic has become. You know its ways, its sounds, its rhythms. You know which corridor to avoid during dinner service, which bench on deck offers the best sunset view, which corner of the library remains silent even on the busiest days. There is an unexpected beauty in the established routine on board. The clinking of cutlery in the dining saloon, the creaking of fine woods, the distant roar of the engines, the constant murmur of conversations, a symphony that will become a precious memory, to be recalled in quiet moments years later. On the morning of arrival, you awaken before dawn, anticipation making your heart beat faster. You join other early bird passengers on deck, all staring fixedly at the western horizon, waiting for the first glimpse of Manhattan's silhouette. And then it happens. First, just a suggestion, an almost imperceptible change in the line between sky and ocean. Then more defined shapes emerge from the morning mist. Someone shouts, "Land ahoy!" And a wave of excitement sweeps through the ship, passing from deck to deck like electricity. The Statue of Liberty appears, her torch raised in welcome. For many in third class, it is an almost religious moment. Men remove hats, women make the sign of the cross. Some cry silently. It is the end of one journey and the beginning of another, the true crossing. New York Harbor is a spectacle of activity. Small boats circle like fish around a whale. Other transatlantic liners, tugboats, fishing boats, an entire aquatic civilization welcomes the Titanic. Flags are hoisted in salute. Whistles sound in maritime welcome. The Manhattan skyline in 1912 is already impressive, though very different from what it would become. The Woolworth Building is still under construction, but already towers above its neighbors. For European eyes, this vertical forest of buildings represents everything America is: ambitious, vertical, impossible. The docking procedures are complex for a ship the size of the Titanic. Tugboats approach like ants trying to move an elephant. The captain and the harbor pilot orchestrate this delicate dance, where centimeters can mean the difference between a smooth arrival and a disaster. Immigration is the next challenge, especially for third class. American officers board to begin processing. Documents are checked, questions are asked, quick medical exams are performed. The fear of being rejected at the last stage hangs over many after such a long journey. For the passengers of first class, the arrival is much simpler. Immigration officials come to their cabins, stamps are applied without questions. Luxurious trunks are handled with special care. Customs is a superficial formality. An Astor or Guggenheim's word is not questioned. Disembarkation happens by classes, from top to bottom of the social hierarchy. First class leaves the ship as it arrived, with privilege and ease. Cars await, hotels are prepared. New York opens like an oyster to receive its human pearls. Second class follows, efficiently and orderly. Many are professionals, teachers, engineers, merchants, with definite destinations and plans. There is neither the glamour of first class nor the exciting chaos of third. It's a practical exit, like the middle class itself. Finally, third class descends into America. Entire families carrying all their possessions in a few suitcases. Wide eyes absorb the enormity of New York. For many, it is the largest human settlement they have ever seen. Noisy, intimidating, wonderful, and terrible simultaneous. Ellis Island awaits many of them, a final ordeal before official entry into the Promised Land. The Titanic is not just a ship, but a bridge between worlds. A metallic womb that gestated new Americans for 7 days, and now delivers them to the new world. You look back one last time before leaving the ship. The Titanic looks different now, anchored and immobile. Without the ocean around it, it loses some of its magic, like a stranded leviathan. Your journey has ended. At least this particular journey. The connections formed on board already begin to dissolve. Noted addresses will be lost. Promised letters will never be written. The temporary community disperses like leaves in the wind, each person following their designated path in the great American metropolis. Some years later, recalling this trip, you will realize how it marked the end of an era. The world was about to change drastically. The First World War was just around history's corner. The Belle Epoque, with its unquestioning confidence in progress, would come to an abrupt end. The very concept of travel would transform in the following decades. Aeroplanes would replace ships as the preferred means of crossing oceans. The elaborate ritual of transatlantic travel, with its expanded time and careful formalities, would be compressed into hurried hours. Great ocean liners like the Titanic represented more than simple transport. They were complete experiences, floating microcosms, miniature worlds with their own rules and rhythms, a way of traveling that valued the journey as much as the destination. You wonder about the people you met on board. The young Italian immigrant determined to open a restaurant in Chicago. Did he succeed? The English widow visiting her daughter, married to a Boston banker. Did they reconcile? The talented pianist in second class. Did he find recognition? Each carried their own hopes and dreams across the Atlantic, as luggage more precious than any trunk. The Titanic was merely a vehicle, not just for people and possessions, but for aspirations and possibilities, carrying the future from one continent to another. Years later, sitting in your favorite armchair, you will casually mention, "I traveled on the Titanic, you know," and you will see eyes widen, conversations cease. Your connection to the great ship will become part of your identity, a fragment of history you carry with you. You will keep small souvenirs, a menu, a concert ticket, perhaps a napkin with the White Star Line logo. Ordinary objects transformed into precious relics by the meaning they carry, tangible portals to memories of a week that feels simultaneously an instant and an entire lifetime. When you close your eyes, you can still feel the gentle sway of the ship. Hear the distant clinking of crystal in the dining saloon. Feel the salty North Atlantic wind on your face. The journey remains alive within you, an experience that time cannot erase. What makes the Titanic special is not just its grandeur or luxury, but what it represents. The pinnacle of an era of unlimited optimism, when human ingenuity seemed capable of conquering any obstacle. A moment of perfect balance before the world tipped into the chaos of war and uncertainty. In a broader sense, we are all passengers on temporary crossings, moving between continents of experience, carrying our hopes as luggage. The Titanic is merely a particularly vivid metaphor for the human journey, majestic, brief, and unforgettable. And so, your journey on the great ship ends, but the memories of that extraordinary crossing will remain with you forever. A week that somehow contained an entire world, a world that now lives only in the stories of those who were there, sailing between continents and eras. If this journey on the Titanic moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Every week here we show that history is much more somber and fascinating than it seems.